Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Obviously, I have not in my normal studio setup here. Those of you on YouTube can see it anyway. Podcast listeners, well, it's probably all the same. But I am on the road right now. Keith, still back at home in Orlando. Keith, how are you doing?
I don't leave the house, Trevor. That's the dirty little secret. I haven't left the house since the pandemic. So I don't know if there still is an outside or not, but I assume you just exist in this little box on this computer and that's it. So
That is it. That is it. You know what, though? I can tell you this. I'm in Las Vegas right now, doing some work for Lakers Nation out of the Blue Wire studio, and it is freezing. I wasn't necessarily expecting. I'm glad I checked the weather like right before I left and grabbed the jacket because it is so cold here. I am a little jealous of you in Orlando right now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I've never been there when it's been anything but like hot. And it's weird because for me coming there, it can be like 110, but it still feels okay because there's no humidity.
Right.
So it's like for me, like, that feels like a 85-degree day here in Orlando when we get buried in humidity and you're soaked in sweat the minute you leave the house. But yeah, no, man. Well, good luck out there. But don't but what does Wesley Snipes say? Always bet on black, right? That's what you're supposed to do.
That's right. I have not done any betting yet, but I will try to keep that in mind if I do. Speaking of betting, look at this professional segue here. The Mavs. Oh, professional segue, but terrible spelling.
At first, see, I didn't even notice the G and the I were backwards. I went to oh no, that says resign. Wow.
I swear I did not go out last night. I did not. I went straight to bed. So there's no excuse here.
You didn't go out last night, but you've been out all day. So
apparently I have been. I have indeed. But the Mavs want to reskin Kyrie Irving. Let me fix that. Well, look, the Mavs have been struggling. It looks like they're about to fall out of the play-in mix. They're almost mathematically eliminated. Luka says he's still going to play until they are mathematically eliminated. Yep. But is this a surprise to you at all? Because they do have the option of having cap space if they were to just say, "Oh, Kyrie, this didn't work, so unfortunately, yeah, we had to give up assets to get you, but we're just going to move on." Are you surprised at all that they're going to try to re-sign him?
Yeah. No. I mean, no. I think they gave up so much to get him. It's anytime you give up even a single first round pick, you're going to do what you can to try to get that player back in the fold. So that part doesn't surprise me. But what I do wonder is Dallas maybe a little more, all right, hey, if you get another big offer from somebody, are they going to push to match that big offer? Or are they just basically going to say, we're good. Like, good luck. What you do. And maybe they just say, yeah, we're going to move on from Christian Wood. And like you said, we're going to take this $30 million in cap space and try to build a more functional team around Luka that we feel like is better. I think, signs lean towards and probably most likely outcome is they'll re-sign Kyrie Irving. But as we all know, when you get in the Kyrie Irving business, what you think you may not actually know. So, it would not surprise me at all. The challenge, I think, comes in who's going to pay him a ton of money this summer? Because the cap space teams doesn't necessarily probably make a ton of sense. Sign and trades get really tricky with, the hard cap and all that. That'll be triggered, and none of that projects to change with a new CBA coming and all those things. So I think it's probably more likely he resigns. But I think let's just say if you could put a bet in on this, I might have you, drop by the sports book and put in Kyrie Irving over under time left with Mavericks under 2 years. I think I would bet on the under.
Yeah, I think that's, given the history, that's a fairly safe bet in my mind. But I mean, you never know. You never know with Kyrie. So, but the Mavs wanting to re-sign him right now, that is at least a little bit of news given how poorly things have gone. But I don't think what's happened to the Mavs is necessarily Kyrie's fault.
No.
There's a lot of other stuff going on. I don't look at this and go, if Kyrie wasn't there, they'd be winning all these games. I don't necessarily think that's what's happening either. So it makes sense they'd want to keep him around.
There's been a lot of stuff in the last week of they were in 5th place when they got him. Yeah, but 5th place was like a bad game away from being in 11th where they're sitting now anyway. Right. Nothing has really changed in the standings that much. It's not. Yes, they have not been good with Kyrie Irving. That is totally fair. That is 100% true that they just haven't been. But yeah, I'm with you. I think they're awful defensively. And yes, part of that is on Kyrie because Kyrie's just not a very good defensive player. But you trade for him knowing that. It's
Yeah.
not like he has come there and shot 30% from the field and played terribly and acted like an idiot and not like he's been Kyrie Irving, the basketball player, and hasn't done any off the court stuff that we're aware of that's been, gone to may cause things to go sideways. So I think it's bad roster construction, a bad, ill-fitting team, and that's why they've fallen out of the postseason picture here. And to your point, I don't think they can be eliminated tonight. As we record this on Tuesday night and the NBA gets back at it, I'm looking at, they can't be eliminated just yet, but they're like right on the verge.
They're really close. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're close. And if that's the case, if that does wind up happening, if the Mavs do get out of the picture, look, it sounds like Luka is may shut it down at some point. Now, obviously, there's only a few games left, so not too huge of a deal, but just something that's kind of already out there. In fact, I'm looking here. The Mavs, I think, are one of the few teams that don't play tonight. If I'm not just missing them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they play tonight. That's probably why they can't be eliminated.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's 13 games tonight as we get back. Obviously, the NBA had last night off for the national championship game. Congrats to the Connecticut Huskies on winning a 5th national title, I believe, in like 25 years or something like that for them. So that's good for the Huskies there. But yeah, they're one of the few teams that does not play tonight as we get back at it. Hey, while we're kind of semi on the subject, I'm going to shoehorn it in. Let's run through a couple of these clinch and elimination scenarios here, just because I think they are kind of interesting. So in the West, since we're talking about the West, Denver clinches the best record in the Western Conference with a win or a Memphis loss. So we're right down to it on that one. Phoenix clinches a playoff spot with a win or a Golden State loss. Sacramento clinches the Pacific Division, whatever. That doesn't mean anything. Utah is eliminated with a loss, Oklahoma City win, and Minnesota win. So even Utah, they've got to lose and have 2 other teams win. So gives you a sense there that Dallas they're on the precipice, but not quite there yet.
Yeah.
In the East, Atlanta clinches a spot in the playing game with a loss or a Brooklyn win or Toronto loss. So that'll lock them into the play-in. Boston can clinch the Atlantic Division with a win, doesn't matter. Brooklyn clinches a playoff spot with a win and a Miami loss, and that would essentially lock in the top 6. Well, would lock in the top 6 in the East. Chicago can lock into a playing game with a win or an Orlando loss. That's down to 1. Orlando's eliminated with a loss or Chicago win, and then Miami just the inverse of the Brooklyn part where they are locked into the playing game with a loss and a Brooklyn win. So we're getting down to it now. But what's crazy is it's April 4th, and we're getting down to it.
We got only 5 days left in the season.
Yeah, 6 game days left if you count today
and the
final day. So yeah, it's absolutely bonkers that we're still this much up in the air. I mean, in the West, 3 teams have clinched anything. That's it.
Yeah.
There's still 7 spots still up for grabs, which is, I mean, really, that's pretty great.
The Suns are not a lock to make the playoffs, and they're a 4 seed.
Yeah, which is nuts, right? Yeah, with 6 game days left to go in the year.
I mean, obviously, I'm not projecting that they wouldn't make but
it's just it's funny. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, Zion.
Sorry, it may be the favorite to win the West.
Yeah,
not even a lock to make the playoffs, and maybe the team most people think are going to come out of the West. That's kind of funny in and of itself too. They haven't even clinched a playoff spot, and I bet people are like, yeah, they're going to win the West.
Yeah, they're coming out.
What a weird season. This has been great. It's been a great year.
Has. Zion Williamson now playing 3-on-3, but still no timetable for his return. I mean, the Pelicans are right there there's 4 teams right now as we're recording this tied with 38 losses. That's the Clippers, Warriors, Lakers, and Pelicans. So it seems pretty likely. I mean, the Pelicans are a game and a half up on the Wolves. Now, they don't have the easiest schedule from here. They get the Kings tonight. They get Memphis, New York, Minnesota. That last game of the season against Minnesota, that may have some real playoff implications on the line there, depending on how things play out. So it's not like they have an easy schedule here. Who knows what, is Memphis locked into the 2 by that point? Does that, by tomorrow? Does that mean that they're resting guys? What about Sacramento? Things get weird this time of year. But uh, if Zion returns, that could definitely change some things in the Western Conference, and it certainly makes the Pelicans a much more dangerous team. But again, right now, 3-on-3 doesn't mean he's ready to go. Doesn't mean he's back on the court. It's going to be interesting. I think it's a total coin flip in terms of whether or not he returns, even though it does look like it's looking more likely than not that the Pelicans will at least be part of the play-in mix.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder, do you get Zion back for the play-in? Like, do you take this rest of this week? That's how you ramp him up. And then basically a week from now, when the play-in tournament starts, that's when you get him on the court, and that's when you get him in. And we've seen he's not a hard guy to reincorporate into what you do, because it's not like he is a heavy pick and roll guy or a heavy usage player. He just kind of gets the ball and he goes and he does his thing. So it wouldn't surprise me with that. I've had people ask, like, what does this mean? Like, when they're playing through, why are they not just playing 5-on-5? Well, 3-on-3, one, it's only half court, so it's very controlled. It'll be full go, but there's also 4 less bodies out there to crash into, land on, all that stuff. So it's just, it's the first step kind of in on-court action to getting back. And my guess is probably middle to end of this week, you ramp them up to 5-on-5, and then maybe start of the play-in tournament, you could get them on the court.
All right, another return. Andrew Wiggins returning to the Warriors. This is fantastic news. They've certainly been missing him. This team's really been struggling, of course, on the road. And once again, they're in that mix with 38 losses right now. Andrew Wiggins coming back, been dealing with some personal stuff. Again, it has not been released publicly exactly what's going on, but that's between Andrew Wiggins and the Warriors. And hopefully everything is good now.
Report from Shams was it's the health of his father.
Okay,
is what's out there now. So that
I remembered seeing that, but I wasn't 100%. So I didn't want to say it because I knew there were some rumors out there that were not true. So I didn't.
And there were definitely rumors that weren't that were out there that we're not going to touch on, because they're, if that's not what it was, there's no reason to even go down that path. But I did all around. Hopefully, this is good news that it's like things have gone for the better direction and he is able to get back to the Warriors. And you're right, they need him now. Their challenge is they've only got 3 games left because they're already at 79 games. So you kind of, I don't think he's playing tonight. I think they said maybe tomorrow he's going to play. I believe they're playing tomorrow, if I have that correct. I might be off on that. Thursday they're going to play. I think. No,
they've got Friday. OKC tonight, and then Friday they have Sacramento. They only have 3 games left.
Yeah, I think he's returning to the team to start practice like today or tomorrow, and then he'll be maybe we'll play Friday. But then you're talking 2 games to play. You're hoping, obviously, if you're the Warriors, you're not in the play-in, or you're not in the play-in tournament. You're in the playoffs. So then that kind of gives them a week to ramp up and practice and get ready to go. So let's see. I don't think it's one of those things where it should take super long for him to get back in the mix and get there, but he hasn't played in over a month. So it may take him a little while to ramp up and be fully ready to go.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. It may take him some time, but again, he was so critical to them winning the championship last year. This could be a big boost for them. Again, not good on the road at all, but their 2 road games. One's at Sacramento. Again, Sacramento, that's on Friday, may have, maybe calling it right there. They may be saying, hey, okay, let's just rest up and be ready for the playoffs because they can be locked into their seed by then. And then they finished the season off at Portland. Portland got the surprise win over Minnesota, so you never know. But things may be solidified by then. So they have a home game against OKC tonight. That's going to be a big one. And then they may have Andrew Wiggins back from there.
And I've had some people say and ask, do we think we're going to see seeding shenanigans with the Warriors and Clippers trying to align to get the Kings? Here's the challenge. Excuse me. Sorry, I couldn't get to the mute quick enough. You can't play around too much because the Lakers and Pelicans are right there. Yeah. So you can't goof around too much with trying to lock in the seeds. I don't think we're going to. I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, I think it's probably more so. I also think if you're the Warriors and the Clippers, your attitude has to be going into that first round. Doesn't matter. We can beat those teams. And I shouldn't have said the Grizzlies, it's the Suns. But you got to have the attitude of, hey, we're the champs, right? If you're the Warriors, and I think they probably do. We'll beat whoever you put in front of us. And then I think if you're the Clippers, you should hopefully have by this time. But it's weird. I was watching them play I didn't watch it live, but then I watched it yesterday because there was no games. Dude, they're still trying to figure it out, man. Like we're, in April 4th, now, and like you've got 3 games left and you're still trying to figure out what your best lineups are. And again, it Paul George is out, but there's other pieces within that. Like, what's our backup big rotation going to look like?
Yeah.
I don't know. I picked them to make the finals this year, and I really don't feel very good about it.
Yeah, it's who knows what's going to happen with Paul George, but the challenge too is like the Warriors don't have the tiebreaker over anybody.
Yeah.
So that can be a factor too in all of this. When we look at Lakers, Clippers, you look at Pelicans. Now, I want to say I haven't looked at it specifically, but I think the Pelicans one could change. It goes down to like
conference record or something.
Yeah, it's something that winds up. It could shift, but the bottom line is that I think all of these teams need to win, and I think you're right. I think trying to do anything to try to dodge the 5 seed, which is what everybody's saying. We don't want to be the 5 seed because then you get Phoenix in round 1. In addition to you'd have most likely Denver in round 2. It's too hard to thread the needle right now. Maybe that changes by the last game of the season and we see some craziness going on. But right now, you're a couple of bad games away from being out of the mix. Like, I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, and it's is it no, it's not tonight. It's coming up, right? It's Lakers and Clippers.
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow night. That is what a I think it was Zach Lowe said facetiously, he said this is the biggest Lakers Clippers game ever. And then he's like, then I thought more about it. He's like, it might actually be the biggest Lakers Clippers game ever. And I don't know, I'm not in position here live on the show to go through their full head-to-head history, but I do kind of wonder, this is a massive game for playoff positioning and where these teams could ultimately land. So yeah, it is a pretty big one at the very least.
No, it definitely is. And the Lakers don't have the tiebreaker over the Clippers. So essentially I could tell you from the Lakers side of things, if the Lakers win out, if they win their next 4, they're the 5 seed. That's it.
That's remarkable.
Isn't
right?
That crazy?
And I know you generally stayed positive, but there had to be days when you're like, this team's not even going to be in the play-in, right? Because it felt like at times, they stink, they're bad. And man, I don't know. It's weird because I don't want to go too nuts with saying this because they're not, I don't know that they're going to win the championship. So it's hard to say, is this one of the more impactful trade deadline set of acquisitions? But completely remade the roster around the stars and in a way that it's not only so made sense, but it so came together so quickly and so well that you saved the entire season with that set of moves at the trade deadline. And we'll include Hachimura, right? Because it was close enough in the trade window. So yeah, wow. I mean, that just really is it's one of those things where it's pretty rare that trade deadline acquisitions make that big of a difference.
And without LeBron for a good chunk, without D'Angelo Russell for a good chunk, and they have the right now, maybe this changes tonight after tonight's game, but they have the top winning percentage in the Western Conference since the trade deadline. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, and it's more certainly from the Lakers side. We were always hoping okay, they can get into the play-in mix. Kept lamenting the 4 games lost on missed calls at the buzzer this season, and we kept lamenting oh my gosh, 4 games, look what that could do in the standings. But they've been able to go on a run, so we'll see how all 4 of these teams finish it out. But it's going to be crazy. It's going to be
shocking
crazy.
What happens when you build a roster that actually makes sense for the way basketball is played. Yeah,
so weird.
Too crazy.
So weird.
What a novel idea.
We've got a couple of transactions here. I'll just your Celtics make a move here. What's going on with this?
Well, it remains to be seen if this in its Celtics. Man, you did go out today, didn't you? Boy,
I swear I did. I will say my flight got delayed, so I did not arrive into Vegas till super late, and then I've been in the studio most of the day. So I'm going to blame this on fatigue from that. But my goodness, I used to be. I feel like I should return my teaching credential or something.
I was going to say, me used to teach kids good.
Oh man.
So Justin Champagny, we'll see if remains to be seen if the Celtics beat the Lakers to the 18th banner, but they beat the Lakers to the 15th roster spot. That's
Yeah.
something, I suppose. Yeah, Justin Champagny, Boston's adding him. A little bit of a surprise that they didn't just do a G League conversion for either JD Davison or Fiondu Kabengele. A little surprising, maybe Tony Snell or Denzel Valentine from the main Celtics weren't the ones who were brought up, but going with Justin Champagny, bringing him in. He's a 6'6" wing, pretty good rebounder for his size. He's kind of 3'4" more than he is 2'3", probably more really of just a pure 3. Shoots it kind of okay. We'll see, but this is wing depth. My guess is ultimately when we get the terms of this, it'll probably be a multi-year deal, and they'll have a kind of free look at him at the end of the season here, and a look into training camp and summer league and the like.
Yeah. Okay. Might as well take a look there. And then Blazers, similar thing. Justin Minaya, signing with them.
Yep, Justin Minaya, shout out Providence College product. He was at South Carolina, then played a grad year at Providence, and just another kind of hard-nosed defender. He'd been playing in the G League, doing some stuff there. My guess is, again, this is probably a chance for the Trailblazers here to look. This is another hardship signing. Portland is, man, are they in the weeds with injuries and shutting guys down. And what's funny with Portland, because I've heard a lot of people be like, I thought the NBA was putting a stop to all this. All these guys are legitimately dealing with something. It's not like these are just completely made up things. Yes, if they were fighting for a playoff position, they'd probably be playing through it. Mm-hmm. But these are real injuries that these guys have had for a while, some of them. So it's they're just down so many guys that here we are at the end of April signing hardships. I thought the funniest thing was John Hollinger's tweet of, man, look at the Blazers coming for our record. Because if we remember when he worked for the Memphis Grizzlies, they went into the playoffs with a ton of dudes on hardship contracts. That's how bad it was that one year. That they had, I think at one point, they either had 4 or 5 players signed to hardship deals. And we'll take the COVID, stuff out of it, because teams got up to, sometimes 21 and 22 players during that madness over the last couple of years. But in this this situation, that was just a different spot. So we'll see. It's Minaya had a nice year in the G League, played for Mexico City in the G League, which is also kind of cool, right? That we're seeing a player get a call up out of the Mexico City G League team, which is kind of fun in and of itself.
Right. We do have a few little CBA tidbits to get into here. Just finish things out. We obviously talked about it a couple of times last 2 shows. We went over CBA stuff with the new collective bargaining agreement. We talked about this though, that you could see some shenanigans where if a player has to hit 65 games played in order to qualify for an award, couldn't you just have that player jump in for opening tip, immediately commit a foul, and then jump back out of the game, and that's it? The NBA, well, what's getting out anyway is that there will be a minutes requirement that has to be passed. They have to play at least 20 minutes, except for I think it's 2 games. They can not play. They can play like 15 or something. But bottom line is you have to play at least 20 minutes for the game to actually count towards your 65 game total. So you can't do what we were talking about, afraid teams would do, where you just have the player play for the opening tip, and then they're really out for the game. In order to get an award, they have to actually play and play a significant chunk of the game.
Yeah, the league obviously wants these games thresholds met, but they don't want them met by being an absolute circus of silliness of, all right, we played a bunch of guys and then we subbed them all out and off we went, because that's just nonsense, right? Doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I don't know. I still don't know that this is good or bad or if it'll matter. We're just gonna have to see where it goes. I'm still hearing that there's still other conditions that may come into play here, as far as one of the things I was tossing. I don't know if I talked it last show, but one of the proposals and ideas was, if you're actually injured and you miss 3 games in a week with a sprained ankle, only the first one counts against you. And the other games are like, they still count as games missed, but not towards the threshold, and they would readjust and those kind of things. So I think it's probably going to be likely not anything like that. And it'll probably be something like, you got to play 65 games with a minimum threshold met of 20 minutes per game, just to keep it simple. Because like you said, there is the caveat of in 2 games, because the other thing is 20 minutes is not like, that's not like yes, anybody who's a real award contender is playing more than 20 minutes per game,
Right.
but it's still not it's not like a small amount of minutes either. Like that's, not even, I mean, sometimes we see guys only play like 25 minutes in a blowout, and then maybe what if you had another couple games where it's like, man, I tried to play and I just couldn't make. We see that every year, right? Somebody
Sure.
tries to play and then 15 minutes of the game, it's like I can't go. Like it's just I don't know. We're gonna. I think this one is going to be one where whatever they roll out is not going to be what lasts for the duration of the CBA. I think we'll probably see some tweaks and adjustments to it.
Let me make my prediction here. It's going to be what lasts until a player, in order to make that requirement, is playing at not 100% and suffers either a re-aggravation or another injury because they were, a sprained ankle and they're favoring that leg and they do something to their opposite knee or whatever. We see stuff like that happen. Until that occurs, that's when I think this is going to change. And it very well could. We could see something like that happen where a guy's playing in a game he wouldn't normally, and it can be like a big time player. They go down, and then there's going to be an uproar about this.
Or God forbid, a player says, "I'm good to go," and a team says, "We're going to hold you out one more game," and you miss out on qualifying for, never mind just an award, but to your point, a bigger contract because of it. Then we're never going to hear the end of it, right? It'll be, that was ridiculous and probably grievances and everything else. So let's see. Let's see.
All right. We to wrap things up, we also have reportedly no discussions taking place around a penalty occurring for a player requesting a trade. There was some buzz about that. We've seen recently players signing big contracts like Ben Simmons, James Harden, them requesting trades shortly after. No penalty here, which there were fans who were very upset in the moment, but I keep going back to players can request trades. I get it gets messy when it becomes public, but I mean, look at Kevin Durant requested a trade, and the Nets said no, and then finally got to a point where they were willing to trade him, and they got what they wanted, or they got a good haul for him. So, but they also took a prior trade request and said, "Sorry, you're under contract, and this is what we're doing," and that's it. So, as long as teams can do that and they're not forced to trade a guy, then okay, fine, right?
Sure. Yeah. And people like to scream about the Ben Simmons of it all, and that obviously went all the way deep into grievances and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
People say James Harden wasn't trying, and that's part of what pushed this. On the flip side, we saw Anthony Davis after he, made his trade request. The NBA was like, "Hey, you have to play him." And then he was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'll play." And then the Pelicans were like, "Yeah, you'll play, but you're going to play 5 minutes each half, and that's it."
Yeah.
That's so this is all ways on this. I think the biggest problem is if you made any kind of real penalty to this, the player is going to come out and say, "Where do you have me on record saying I want to trade?"
Yeah, exactly.
So my agent said that? He didn't have approval to say that. Or, well, the team's saying that, but I never said that, right? And that's where you're going to get into grievances and all sorts of stuff that nobody wants.
It's a mess.
If I had time before the show, I would have made, and maybe I'll make one and just leave it here in my office, and I'll put on my tinfoil hat, put on my ceremonial tinfoil hat. It is, I don't think anyone actually cares about this. I think the NBA publicly has to say, this is not good. And then I think behind closed doors, the NBA says, "Hey, look at that. We just dominated the news cycle with the Kevin Durant trade stuff for an entire week in the middle of our offseason when no one is thinking about basketball. Like we just owned it, right? For that entire window of time." And I think they're like, we're going to publicly say, "Yeah, we don't really like this. This isn't great." But I think in the end, it is no, we don't really care. This is fine. I don't think anybody wants the situations where it turns into a player who is a pending free agent. And let's call it out, kind of what happened with Anthony Davis of, "I am going here. Don't trade for me because I'm going to not be with you after the next 30 games or whatever. I'm leaving town." But those are so few and far between that it doesn't really matter. And it's so few and far between that we get a player openly saying, yeah, I don't want to be here. That's like once every 20 years.
And usually they just tweet it and then say that's not what they meant.
Say they were at the hair salon, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think this is the major issue. And the other thing I go back to, I think this is also a little bit of common sense at play here. If you could really get them in a quiet moment to speak about this. I'm losing my voice because I've done a lot of radio and podcasts about the CBA over the last 2 days. If you could get them in a quiet moment to say the NBA to admit, yeah, teams can turn around and trade dudes whenever they want, almost. Yeah, sometimes there's restrictions, sure. But for the most part, teams can trade players whenever they feel like. If the team can decide it's not working with this guy, let's trade him. Why can't the player have the same level of agency to say, this isn't working the way we wanted it to. I'd like to be somewhere else. And I think more often than not, we get trade requests where it's the team is also like, all right, yeah, it makes sense. Like, let's try to get something done. So I don't think this is the problem. It seems like it could be. I think this is more of a, in the moment, we're all going to react to it. We're all going to say what we say, and then we're all just going to keep moving along.
The problem is the fans. That's the problem, because fans are going to react to these trade requests, and it just looks it's a bit unseemly. If a player signs a contract, it's a 4-year deal. You as a fan are saying, okay, this is my guy for at least the next 4 years. This guy is going to be playing for my team. I'm going to be supporting this player. I'm going to go out and buy his jersey. And then 6 months later, he wants out. He wants a trade. Then what? Right? Like, fans don't want that. Fans don't want to be in that situation. Now, I will say on the flip side, regarding the Anthony Davis thing, I try not to be too biased with this whole thing, with all of that, because obviously Anthony Davis wound up on the team that I cover, right? But I go back to Dwight Howard. I wish Dwight Howard had done what Anthony Davis did so badly, because that is the most damaging thing that can happen. If you are going to be a free agent and you tell your team, I'm not going to stay, thank you. Thank you for letting the team know that, so they can get something and you aren't left with nothing and that player just walks away. And so that's what I keep going back to, and it can get messy, and that's a problem, and all of that. But I think you're also right. It creates buzz around the league. It just gets difficult for the fans to say, I was supporting this guy, and now I feel hurt because this guy has said, I don't want to be on your team anymore. I want to go somewhere else. And that's where you get the outcry. But I think you're right. From an NBA perspective, yeah, they're going, it's August and it's the NFL is picking up, and we just dominated a week. Let's go. We'll take that.
Yeah, that's it. And I just go back to, on the fan side of it too. Fans in general root for teams instead of players. They root for players while they're on those teams, but they're fans of
thing, though. The player first fans are becoming more of a thing.
More of a thing for sure. And I've probably told the story here, but it's all quick again. I have a really good friend. She is a massive LeBron James fan, and I know you deal with this every day. And she was a Cavs fan, then a Heat fan, then a Cavs fan. Now she's a Lakers fan, but she really is a LeBron James fan. And I don't have a problem with that. Hey, if you love the game however you love it. That's fine with me. I don't really care. It doesn't matter too much. As long as you don't get too nutso about a whole deals of stuff. But it's, in general, I still think there's probably more fans of teams than players. And part of it is the team is stable, right? The team is always there. The players are going to change. At most, with a lot of these guys, it's pretty rare to have the Kobe Bryants of the world where you have a 20-year relationship with one player, right? Those are not very common anymore in really the world of sports, never mind the NBA. And that is where I think in that case is you get it, right? Like that's different, right? Then the team and the player become synonymous, right? They become one. Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, right? Mavs and Spurs, they might as well be one entity in that. But I think in these cases is we push the blame on the players when sometimes the team's just as much to blame. If I re-sign with you and then you put on, if Luka Doncic in 2 years says, I want out, like this is a disaster, you made a mess, were you going to blame him because you signed a contract? The Mavs bungle everything around him and make a huge mess of that roster. Why should he have to be the one who has to stick it out too? When if they decided, Luka's not very good, we can move him tomorrow. Like, it just seems to me there's this weird, like, we just don't want to place blame on the thing that's the constant in our lives as fans. And I get it. I've done it too. I mean, I've repeated "In Bill We Trust" more times than I could think of about Bill Belichick and the Patriots. When there's times when it's like they probably blew the decision in reality.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's what it is, right? Like, you've got that constant that gets handed down over the generations, and players, that's not the way it works. That's not how it works. So it's, again, I don't think it's something that had to be addressed, even though it was going to be a buzzworthy topic, something that people are going to discuss, and should players be allowed to request trades and all that kind of stuff. It gets out, but like you said, prove it. Prove the player requested a trade, because they're not going to go say it. It's not like they're going to put it on camera, right? Most of them anyway. They're not going to jump on social media. They're not going to jump on a video and say, hey, this is, I want to trade from this team because of this, this, and this. That's not going to happen. That's not the way they're going to communicate that. Instead, it's going to be through back channels and stuff. Sources close to player X say they'd like to move on. And then the player can say, what sources? Oh, I didn't say that. That wasn't me.
Yeah, and to your point, you almost wish it was that way, right? For some guys where it's like, please say what you're going to actually do this summer. I mean, to some extent with the Celtics, right? With Kyrie Irving, it was, they held on a lot longer than they should because it was like, well, we haven't heard differently that he's not going to sign here. And then look what happened. And it ended up okay for everybody, I think. But yeah, it's definitely, one of those things where, I just think it's one of those, this is a big problem. And then it's like, nah, we're good. Let's all move on.
Right. In the meantime, hey, superstar player, it's August. We haven't had much come out yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you make some noise?
You happy over there? How's it working out for you?
Are you sure?
Yeah, right. Imagine that if a player is like, I was coerced by the NBA and requesting a trade because they needed news in August. Like, that'd be fine. Now on the flip side, let's not do that again. I would like to have a little bit of downtime before the season starts. Right? We don't necessarily need all of that all the time.
I kind of agree, but I don't know, man. I start getting a little shaky when there's not any NBA news out.
I just need, all right, then let's say this. Let's all agree collectively the first 2 weeks of August, nothing's going to happen. And then we all agree, we know those 2 weeks we got nothing, and then we can all pick up with
just tell me when to plan my vacation.
That's it. That's all really what I want to know.
Just tell me when I can plan my vacation, NBA, so I can do that, and the rest of the time, no problem. Let's not, I don't know, have a Patrick Beverley trade when I'm in the middle of the Pacific, please. That's the ideal, right? to know when is it safe to travel.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what I want to know. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. Appreciate all of you who have been joining us over on YouTube. Make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on notifications as well. And of course, find the podcast version of the NBA Front Office Show over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.